Hi, welcome. For those of you who are not familiar with me and my practice, my name is Megan Warren, and I'm a certified coach specializing in emotional resilience. Some of you may not know what emotional resilience is. A lot of us don't grow up with it. It's not modeled in our homes, and we're not taught it in our schools. Essentially, it's learning how to show up as your authentic self and honor that authentic self when you encounter situations that challenge you, whether it's with people or whether it's with sort of events. And then it's learning how to find solutions that work for both you and the other person. In addition to being an emotional resilience coach, I am also an expat single mom, and my background is in business development and public health. I'd like to take a minute before we jump into our topic today just to say subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be making a lot of videos that are designed to help you navigate the sticky life challenges that you encounter. So if you subscribe, you can stay updated. So today we're going to be talking about what to do when someone just won't change. So how many of you out there have a situation or two or three where you're just frustrated, you've reached your limit, you are ready for the other person to change, but you don't actually see any hope that they will change, and so your frustration continues to rise, you're getting angrier, you're turning passive aggressive, sometimes mean, sometimes you avoid the situation. It makes sense, right? If we don't see any hope for change and the other person, is doing something that we don't agree with, then it absolutely makes sense that our feelings will start out as frustrated and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then as we don't feel any ability to change the situation, to impact it, to get a different outcome, then you can go one of two ways. So you either go the victim route, where you don't have a lot of energy. All your energy is going into the situation and you feel absolutely powerless to change it. And so you feel passive aggressive and apathetic and lethargic and helpless, and you ask why the world is against you and why this person is doing this to you. Or you might also go the other route, which is to get angry about it. There's a lot of blame, and you lean into that pain because it makes it bigger, and you get angrier, and there's such resentment. And it's much more of a, if you look at it from this angle, you're in a lot more conflict, active conflict, than you are if you go the victim route. And I mean, it makes sense, right? Either route makes sense, whether you feel like a victim or whether you feel angry and like you want to fight your way out of it. Where you ask questions later and you fight first. It makes sense. But I guess I would take a minute to ask, how well is that really working for you? How well in this situation, as you continue to repeat the same pattern over and over and over, how well is it serving you? So if you look at it as an equation, and it's kind of ironic that I'm suggesting we look at things as an equation because my mother used to be a math teacher a while back, and I have always hated math, and there was lots of tears in my past when related to numbers. But nevertheless, the equation metaphor will work well here. So if you have an equation in which you're a variable, the other person is a variable, the context of the situation, let's say, is a variable, and you add those three together to get an outcome. Now, if you and the other person and the context don't change, you're always going to get the same outcome. So I think a lot of us take our time and we try to spend our energy, our time, our money, our efforts at changing the other variable in the equation, which is the other person. And we don't look at how we can change ourselves. The only way that we go to change ourselves is in order to create change in the other person. So if you're ready to get a different outcome and you're really tired of this, and whether you feel hopeless about it or whether you feel like it's blaming and it's all their fault, if you are ready to get something different, there's an acronym that you can use, and it's called BEE. So BEE, as in bzz, like the pollinator. So essentially, it starts with you setting an intention. Now, this intention is related to a feeling. It's not related to a material outcome, such as the other person is going to do the dishes. I'm going to walk in the house and see the dishes done, or my boss is going to give me a promotion, or my child is not going to have a tantrum, or my friend is going to show up on time. She's always late, drives me nuts. So it's not related to a very specific material outcome like that, an action-oriented outcome. It is related, it's an intention related to a feeling, how you want to feel in the situation. So I would guess that currently you probably don't feel very good. You feel angry, frustrated, resentful, hopeless, whatever it is. So you probably want to feel the opposite of that. You want to feel peaceful, calm, accepting. You want to be able to let it go. And granted, we'd all just like the other person to change. But given that we have very little control over having someone change, if they do change, often they only change for a very short period of time because it isn't intrinsically motivated. So if we want to create real change and get a different outcome, the one variable that we have control over in this equation is us, it's ourselves. And so you can set an intention that you're going to feel differently in the situation, and you're going to feel something that you want to feel. And then you can take that intention and you can use that acronym B, which I mentioned earlier. So the first letter is B, and it stands for be generous. So you can begin to be generous in the situation, which is both generous to you and the other person. So you understand in the situation that you are both trying your best, that you're not trying to be malicious to each other, or if you are a little bit, it's usually because it's due to a buildup of angry, negative emotions. And so you give each other the benefit of the doubt, always. First thing is that the other person is doing the best they can in the circumstances, because you understand, and this is where the second one comes in, that life happens, right? Lots of things go on in life that you may not be aware of. And so your boss, who you're frustrated with, well, they may have had a fight with their spouse. They may be under political pressure at work. They may feel overwhelmed because they have too much to do. Your spouse may feel pressured to financially support the family and is really worried about that and didn't sleep well the night before. You know, you yourself got in a fight with your child, or you missed your bus and so you were late. Lots of things happen. In fact, there's a word for this, which there's a dictionary of obscure sorrows, and I heard about this on a podcast. And the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows has a word called sonder, and it's essentially when you pass someone in the street, a random passerby who you don't know, and you suddenly become aware of the fact that they have this rich history around them, that they are also a father, sister, brother, child, friend, rock climber, football player. It doesn't, matter what it is. It's just that they suddenly have this amazing depth and richness to them that you're not even aware of, and they are living in this story that floats around their head. And so the concept of this definition that applies to what I'm talking about here is that in the second step, which is empathize, the first one is be generous, the second one you're empathizing, you're actually understanding that their context is way outside of what you know and what you can see. And it comes from their experiences and their habits and their concept of themselves and what happened in their day just then, and their culture and how they see the world. And so essentially it's that you in that moment empathize. You try to step through the looking glass. You try to turn around in order to see a different perspective, to see the situation from their point of view, and to understand that they do have that depth and richness. And so what that enables you to do is A, see a different perspective, which could help you see the opportunities in the situation. And B, it helps you affirm that they aren't trying to be malicious or do this to you to be a jerk, whatever the case is. And it also allows you to detach from the situation, because as their context gets broader and deeper, you come out of it. You're not so close and focused just on the, that one moment in time and that horrible feeling that you're getting out of it, and you're not trapped in the story that you're telling yourself about the situation, and you can kind of step back and see them in their bigger context. And so that allows you to separate your emotional reaction in that moment. And then the third E is establishing boundaries. So once you kind of back it out and you can see that they're not doing it to you, I'm not suggesting that you undertake any of this in order to agree with or accept what they're doing because you suddenly think it's okay. Your friend may be late and that may not be okay with you, and that's okay. I'm not suggesting that you suddenly begin to say that everyone can be late all the time. It isn't so that you can go into their worldview and then suddenly argue from their point of view and prove them right and yourself wrong. It isn't about right or wrong or black and white. It's about broadening the context in order to allow yourself to detach to make things better for yourself in the moment. And then essentially, in the very final step with the establishing boundaries, you are in advance notifying them and yourself of what works for you and what doesn't. So sticking with that example of your friend always being late, you can say, it bothers me when you're late. It makes me feel like you don't respect me and you don't respect my time and you have something more important to do. And I feel like I'm wasting my time and I feel like I'm not worthy of your time. Whatever that story is that you're telling yourself, that is probably not true, because your friend, as you're looking at the second step, which is empathizing and broadening their context, your friend may have grown up in a family who was always late, who doesn't have a sense of time the way that you do, but is not actually intending any kind of disrespect. Simply feels overwhelmed or the need to always fit one more thing in, and so misses transition windows. But that doesn't mean that you don't set your boundaries for what works for you. It means that you are establishing your boundaries and saying, okay, you're always late. That drives me nuts. I've communicated this to you in advance. And so I'm going to tell you that I will show up on time, a time we set, a time you agreed to that works for you. And if you don't show up within 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is, then I will move on to my day. And that way, there's no anger. You've said in advance what you're going to do. They know it. You know it. And then when it happens, if it happens again, well, then you don't waste your time. You do move on. And you're not angry about it because you've planned for this. And you understand this is how your friend is. You don't necessarily agree with it. You have communicated what works for you, and now you're just simply enacting that. So I can't guarantee that you're going to get the outcome that you want, which is that your friend will always show up on time, though I will say from personal experience that you will yield pretty big results pretty quickly, changing, setting your boundaries and adhering to them, either because you're not mad, so the whole situation is more palatable from an emotional standpoint, or because you leaving wakes them up to, oh, okay, maybe I need to plan with them for things to be 15 minutes later. And they set, you start to see different possibilities where they set a timer, let's say, that allows them to get there on time. But you're not going to have the emotional wherewithal to do that unless you can detach and step back. So again, this B acronym isn't so that you can accept that they're not going to change. It's so that you can figure out how you can make the situation work better for you, and then that will create change because you are changing one of the variables in the equation. So I hope that helps you a little bit as you're trying to work with situations that are frustrating you where people don't change. So I challenge you, as I close this video, to go with one situation in your life where you feel frustrated, you see no hope for change, you feel just betrayed, you feel constantly irritated or absolutely just angry. And think about it from this standpoint. Set an intention to change your feeling, to make the situation, to figure out a way to make the situation work for you, given that you cannot change the other person's behavior. But you can change yourself. And you're changing yourself not in order to justify or okay their behavior. It's in order for you to find a way to establish boundaries and navigate your way through this situation to a better outcome. So I challenge you to go find one of those situations, to work through this acronym, and then come back to the comments on this video and let me know, did it work? Did it not work? If it didn't work, let's look at how we can get you unstuck. If you'd like to talk about this in more detail and have a personal meeting with me, you can go to my website and we can look at how we can get you through the looking glass to be able to see some wider perspectives and shift how you show up. There's a link on my website, www.meganwarrencoaching.com. There's a link where you can schedule a discovery call with me, and it's free, and we can just talk about whatever's on your mind and figure out if we're a good match and how we might work together. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to hearing comments from everyone. Be well.